it's been problematic in the past sending a recording that we've taken to someone outside the organisation. But what I've done in previously is pop it up onto video onto YouTube as a private link and then do it that
Okay.
way. So at least you'll
Yeah.
have access to it. So, but yeah, I'll go through a more technical side. If you do have any questions as you go through, let us know. The other thing is obviously if you started using this module, we're here to provide support as you go through, the same as other aspects of the website. So it's not learn everything now and that's it. So sort of,
Yeah.
work through. So I'll share my screen. So I don't know the way Teams puts the leave button right next to the share button. That has caused me to disappear sometimes. So, okay, can you see my screen there?
Yes.
Okay, and is it big enough? Do you want me to make the text any bigger or anything like that?
I'm okay.
You're
Yeah.
okay. Okay,
Yeah.
brilliant. So, well, Maddie knows all about it anyway, so don't worry about that. There you go. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm using what we're calling it. Well, we called it CET. We were going to call it the Clinical Evaluation Tool, but we've now changed to CCT. So that's why that says there. But this is like our test site where we built the clinical competency tool, and it's hosted at the moment. It's a little bit slow because the staging site is not run to the same specs as our main website, and there's just a little bit of fine tuning they want to do. So if things take a little bit longer to load, don't worry. When it comes to the final release, it'll be the same as the main site. It'll be just as quick. But you can see on the dashboard here, and obviously you're familiar with the dashboard, some new tiles have appeared. You've got a competency tile next to the assessments tile where people can go in and they can pick, see, this is one of the pages that's a little bit slower. They can go in and they pick whether they want to do a standard competency, a bit like the assessments, where a standard competency is one that we built at Clinical Skills, and there will be a few standard competencies for you to have a look at. There'll also be the ability for you to build local competencies.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're familiar with the local assessments.
Yeah.
I did look back and I think at least it might have been yourself actually did build or start building a local assessment last year. But it's a similar sort of
Yeah.
thing. You can make your own local competencies. And the same as the competencies, if you did want to make local assessments, you want training on that, just let us know, because obviously there's a bit of a learning curve in that.
Yeah. I
But the
think I
idea
do
with
need some support for that.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
it'd be
So if
good.
you want, I'm happy to have a session where we go through that. What I've done with other organisations is go through the basics, get them starting a local assessment, then come back maybe in a week or two, go through how it's gone, and actually pick it up. But
Yeah.
that works very well with the local competencies, because you can use local assessments in the local competencies, so you can make your own bespoke assessments to go in there.
Yeah.
So you've got that area on the dashboard for your users. They also, when they go into My Performance, they have a My Competencies area. At the moment, they can go in and look at their assessments, but now they have the ability to view competencies they've taken on the system as well. So that's there as well. And then as a super user, you have an area to actually build the clinical competencies. So what I'll do is I'll go through, build a basic clinical competency just to give you an idea of how it works, and say we'll come back and then take it as a user. So if I go into the new clinical competency area, it's laid out, the concept is quite similar to the local assessments, in that you've got the checklists and the checklist steps broken up here, whereas on the assessments you'd have question banks and questions available. But here we've got all the checklists on the system, so you can go into there, and all the checklists that currently are on paper have now been transferred onto the system here, and they're available, and you can actually look at the checklist steps that already exist on the system. So you can see all the checklists there. When you build your own checklist, which you can do on the system, you can use our standard checklists and modify them. You can make your own checklists, or you can use a mixture of the steps that we've already got on our checklists and some new checklist steps. So you might decide one of our checklists is close but not quite right. So you could then use that and modify it to add or take away the bits that that would appropriate for you. So you've got those there. You've got the assessor questions. As you know from our checklist, most of them have got 2 or 3 questions at the bottom just to actually finalise off and sort of test people's knowledge of the subject. So you can also look at those, and you can modify and add your own questions to the end of the checklists. And then we have what we call a self-certified components area. Now this is where you can come in and you can actually put information that people just tick off to say they've done something. So basically in this case you can say, well, have you watched a video? And you could have a link to a video that you want them to watch on another site or wherever, and they can self-certify that they have watched that video, and that again will be part of the competence, and I'll put one of those in so you can see how it works later on. And you can add as many of those as you want. So for example, here we've got some, just people confirming they've read particular guides, and all sorts of different ones as well. So you can do anything. You could have a self-certified that they've, read material on your premises or whatever. So
I
when
think it's a
you've got all
really
the
good,
codes,
sorry, Steve, I think it's a really good place to put your local policy because it passes that accountability over that actually, yes, I have read like your local guidance, your local policy on this skill, and I think like I am competent. So yeah, so I think it's a
I
really good
think
place to put it.
it definitely is. I think part of our problem, or my problem is at the moment, is that I haven't got the time to do the admin stuff in the background to get this set up because I'm doing obviously all my other role. But I do have support from Andrea. Like I said, it's a shame that she couldn't come today, but I'll get her to watch the recording. But it's just having the time because she's really busy as well. So it's just having the time to get
yeah, I
it
mean, if
all
Andrea
set up.
wants to have a session where we just go through what I'm going through now again, or
Yeah.
as I say, when it comes to building them, firstly, either of you are quite welcome to come back and we'll go through it, or if there's just stuff that's going to take a lot of time you want to set up, come back to me and we'll see if we can help out a bit at this end to save a
Yeah.
bit of the donkey work.
Yeah.
But yeah, because obviously you are busy with other things as well. And a lot of this will be, a bit of a sort of initial investment, getting those competencies in place. But once they're there, you can set them up to renewal and they'll sort of run on for years afterwards. The same with the sort of local assessment side. So if I have a look through, if I go through and actually build a competency now, so if I go into the competency area here, and again, this takes a little bit long to load. I expect this will be a lot quicker than when it's finally done. And what we'll do is we'll set up a competency, and I was going to go on infection control measures, which is a fairly standard thing, just to work through building a competency, including those checklists, self-certification, and some assessments as well. And I'm just trying to talk to cover the fact that it's taking a long time to open, but I think I've covered it and no one noticed. So no, I mentioned that to the people today actually, and I've just sent them a little note to say if you're working on the website for the next hour or so, don't take it down because we're using it. So there you go. So you come into the area, and I mean, you probably looked at the assessments area, and if you go into the assessments, you get a list of all the assessments on the system, and this is very, very similar. You can look at the assessments or the competencies already on the system. If you find one that you like, you can come across and you can duplicate it and then modify it for your own use, or you can create a brand new competency, which is what I'm going to do here. So we click create new competencies. Which is not easy to say actually. And you'll notice there's several steps at the top, which again sort of echoes the way that local assessments build. They sort of guide you through step by step what you need to build the complete package. So to start with, we just give the competency a name, and we'll say ECH infection control, for example. I can't type. Okay, you can add an image to that if you want, and that'll appear as a tile when they go into the competency areas that have a tile with whatever image. You can specify at this stage, is the competency going to need renewal? Now, it's envisaged in a lot of cases, you want an initial competency assessment, and then a year or so later, you want them to renew the competency just to show that they're still suitably trained. So you can click there to say, yep, it's going to be a renewal one. Click Save. The next thing you do is you pick the checklists that you want people to actually go through for the competency. And as we mentioned earlier, those are interactive. So the person will actually have an assessor who will work through on screen with the checklist and mark them off and then sign them off if suitable at the end. So what we're going to do is we're just going to grab a couple of checklists related to infection control. So I'm going to pick the adult section and I'm going to go down to infection control measures. Do a search, and I'm going to say that we want two checklists. We want the routine hand hygiene one, and we'll go the aseptic technique in hospital setting. We'll say those are checklists we want people to have worked through, and then I can just add them to the competency like that. And after a second, they come up, and you can see now they're at the top, and you've got the option to remove them if you change your mind. As I say, you could add your own bespoke local checklist that you've already built to the system, so you've got that control, and you can add a mixture of the local ones and standard ones as well in the same competency. So once you've done that, you come across to the checklist parameters, and this is where you look at the two checklists you picked and you say, okay, how many initial observations, how many times do we need to see the person doing it to know they can actually do it successfully? And you might say routine hand hygiene, we want to see them do it a couple of times. We'll give them a couple of retake attempts. When they come to renew it, we're fairly confident, so they only need to be observed once. So we'll just say once, and we'll give them, again, 2 retakes on that. We can say that every checklist step has 1 point, 1 mark, and we want a pass mark of 90%. And then the questions at the end, again, there'll be a number of questions. We'll say, well, we need 90% pass mark on that as well. So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So we're doing the initial observations and then the renewals. With the second one, we might say, again, the same thing, maybe two takes, but this time we'll say, well, we're not worried about doing that on repeat. We're just going to do that the first time round. We're not going to do that on renewal. So you don't need to fill in attempts allowed or steps needed or anything like that. You do need to put this, sorry, because obviously that relates to the initial observation, the pass mark again, and the pass mark for the assessor questions. So this way they'll be asked, they'll go through and do this checklist once when they first do it, but it won't be repeated when they do when they renew the competency.
Yeah.
So once they're done, you do that, you save the parameters. Next, you come across and you select any assessments you'd like to go with the competency. So the checklists are obviously the practical element. The assessments, you're testing people's understanding of the subject as well. So again, I'll just look for an assessment on infection control. So if I come down to the infection control category, there we are. And we've got a standard assessment, I think, already, infection control measures. So I can click here and add it, but if I'm just adding one, I can come across and add it here as well by clicking select. Now, again, if you've made your own local assessment, you can add that at this point. So you could have a competency that has nothing to do with the clinical skills content. It could be just about, your local checklist, your local assessments within your hospice. So we've now got that. Come across the self-certify components next. And this is where you get people to actually say that they've read a guide or watched a video. Bit of a bug at the moment, it doesn't show the full name. So that's something we've reported as well. I've already set up a competency which basically says I've read the routine hand hygiene and the aseptic technique guides. So what we're going to do is we're going to add that. But we can also add one to say I've watched this video. And you could add, as I say, as Maddie said, you could add a link to a video, or you could add a link there to your own infection control policy or whatever you want. So I'll add that as well. So we've got two self-certification elements. Then we come across to the competency summary, which just basically tells you what you've got in the competency. So we've got a checklist, we've got another checklist, then we've got an assessment, and then two aspects of self-certify. If you want, you can change the order that this happens. So you might want people to watch the video first. So you can pop that up to the top. And you can change whatever order that you want it to be displayed on the screen. You can also specify, whether you want the video whether you want them to self-certify. Hang on, teeth coming loose. Whether you want them to self-certify on the renewal as well as the initial assessment. And you say, well, we're happy for them to watch the video the first time, but they don't need to do it for the renewal. So we'll just turn that off. You can do this with the aseptic technique and the routine hand hygiene. We set them up previously, and you can see the aseptic technique. Whoops. You can see there's a no there. That indicates that that won't be used for the renewal, which is what we did on one of the earlier screens. So does that all make sense? There's a lot of information here, but it's sort of go through step by step, and you can always go back and edit it later on. So once you've done that, the final stage is to come to the competency parameters. So that's where you set things like how long they've got to complete the competency. So you can say that once they started, it's got to be completed, say, in 30 days. You can make it so it automatically allocates to everyone in your organization. So that means it's available for them to take. You can give them a certificate to download. You can make it mandatory if you want. You can specify how long until they have to do a renewal. And I think most organizations it would be 365 or 2 years, something like that. You can also then give them a renewal prompt. So they'll get a little email to say 30 days before the competency expires that they need to retake the competency. So I'll just save that.
This is literally amazing, can I just say, because
good.
we have literally, I'll just show you, because everything that you're saying is just firing my brain off at the moment.
Brilliant.
But we've
had a lot of people said that, really. It's
well, we created this. I know it's well, I can't quite get it to stay in focus as well, but it's
just about
basically
got it,
a competency portfolio, and what we've done for each member of just sort of like, just so you can get the idea of why this is going to be so useful for us, because everything that you're describing, we've got sort of on paper. So it's a mixture between part folder and part clinicalskills.net. So what we've done is for each staff group, whether it be HCAs, nurses, sisters, advanced nurse practitioners, physios, whoever it is, we have created each one of them a folder, and we've identified what their clinical skills are. So you've not only got a clinical skill, does that skill require training? or can it be like some peer-to-peer, you know, because you don't really need training on how to wash your hands, but you do need to do some e-learning.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I mean, if
there's
you're
all
doing it in a
different
clinical
routes of
setting, yeah.
learning, isn't there? Yeah.
Mm.
You could
And
always
then,
do it in that. You could do it in terms of a competency. You've read the guide, so you've done the
Mm.
theory, and
yeah,
your self-certified component could be I've observed this being done in practice. Like
yeah.
they've actually declared that they've watched someone wash their hands officially in practice, you know, like peer-to-peer
Mm.
learning.
Because
So
what we've
yes,
got to be
it's very
careful
flexible.
of, it is, but what we've got to be careful of is that we've got e-learning that does this as well.
That's the thing, yeah. You don't want to
So
duplicate too much, do you?
no. So this
Mm.
is where we need to decide, you know, because again, you can't tell how much people are reading through e-learning either, can you? But if we're going
Mm.
to say that we're doing it this way through clinicalskills.net, then it needs to be taken off our e-learning.
Yeah, I mean, if
Do
you
you
can
know
get it
what
all
I
together
mean?
on one system, it's a lot easier. And the idea is that
Yeah,
we now, this sort of closes the loop. We're sort of providing the extra element rather than sort of having, an
yes.
assessments which are on the system and you can run reports on them and clinical checklists that you couldn't. Now this is all going to be that you can run reports on these. You can also, if you set a competency up, you can allocate it to particular teams or particular individuals, the same as you can do for guides or assessments. So if you've got a competency that's only for your registered nurses, not your HCAs or whatever, you can target it specifically at them and only they'll see it. So, you can go right down to the individual level if you wanted as well as to what they see.
Mm.
So,
Steve, on the
yep,
self-certify, you know how we can add a link to a video?
yep.
Could we theoretically add a link to another platform that hosts their e-learning, other
As
e-learning?
long as as long as it's a straightforward link that brings in either that will take you to something in a new tab that you can look at. So yeah, should be able to, as long as they can sort of access it just by clicking on a link, that would
That'd be
go
good.
through to the
Yeah, so even if
the
you're
relevant.
hosting that part on another site, they can
Mm.
still then self-certify that they've gone to that
Mm.
site, they've done that e-learning, and you'll be able to double check, I'm sure, on that
Yeah,
site's
And
reporting if you needed to. But
there
it
because at
is
the
sort of
also
keeps it
moment,
in one competency, which is
mm,
digital. Yeah.
at the moment, we add our policies onto Bluestream,
Okay.
right, yeah, because you
which
can't.
is
There
the
isn't
learning platform. So that's
there
where
isn't
we
an
Yeah.
easy
needed.
to upload documents onto our
Make
website.
that
There is a media
decision.
library as
Yeah,
well, so you could actually upload them onto there. And then that makes it much easier to link across to them. So
yeah.
yeah, good. So
Okay.
I'll go through finishing we're
Yeah,
virtually
sorry,
there anyway
Steve.
on this on the sort of setting up side. So when you've actually saved the at that level, you then get the sort of introductory screen. Now this is a bit like when you take an assessment, you get an introductory screen that tells you how many questions and things like that. This does the same. When someone goes into a competency, they get an introductory screen here, which tells them, what the various elements are of the competency. So they've got 2 checklists to do. They've got an assessment to do as well. And then they've also got to say that they've read and understood a particular guide. And it tells them what competencies will be involved in this, which guides will be involved in this competency. And these will be the ones that the assessments we've selected use. So to pass the assessment, they will need to understand these guides. Now you can personalize this text. In the top box here, you can make any changes. So if you wanted to put your own information about your own local policies or any particular requirements, you can add them to the text, and it will be seen by people when they go in to take the competency. So just coming down here, you can specify when it's available from if you wanted to. So you could have a publication date, or I'm just going to publish it straight away and do it like that. So you've now completed the competency, and it'll be in the list of competencies if I come back here, which can take a while to load, so I won't worry about that. But basically this competency will now be sitting there and it'll be available for someone to take. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to log out as a super user, and I'm going to go in just as a user and show you what it looks like when you actually take the competency. So let me just get the right person up. So I'm going in here as a chap called Jim, and he's just a regular punter. And he's going to take the competency because he reckons he's up to it. So there we go. Let's give
So
him a
can
go.
sorry, Steve, can I
Here,
just
come.
ask then? Because at the moment, what we're doing is we're going into to upload this information before this came. We're going into my CPD. We're
Yep,
clicking on upload my personal CPD for the HCAs,
yep,
and it's the NMC CPD for the nurses. And then we
yep.
just get them to type it in manually. That's how we're
Yeah.
using the system at the minute.
I
So we
mean,
won't have to use that part then.
no, I mean, you can still, the idea of the CPD
We can do
area is,
extra CPD, can't we?
oh yeah, the idea
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
CPD area is really for people to record their own revalidation information. It's not searchable. So as a super user, you can't run reports on it. So it's not really accessible. It's very much a private area for people to record their own CPD
Yeah.
information. And it has got all those different CPD templates already there. So that will still be available for you. And hopefully your nursing staff and HCAs will still find it useful to record their CPD information. But no, how it works now, or how it will work, is that your users will come into the competencies tile here. So they'll just click on that.
Sorry, Steve, just whilst that's loading,
Yes.
the My CPD section is more the idea of that. Love how you're using it currently, but the idea is like more appraisals. So like you need to set like goals or see what they need to learn, and so they can document that they're meeting their CPD requirement, which was part of their appraisal and stuff like that. Because as Steve said, there's not the reporting function, so you wouldn't be able to go in and check that they've done their training that's recorded on their My CPD.
Yeah.
No.
It's great you found a way to use that. Yeah, but
well, that's why we've still got the checklist, because at the end of our skills, the idea is that you use clinicalskills.net for the guide for the procedure, then checklist to sign it off, and then the person that's observed you signs it off in your folder, so you've got a signature, and then a tick box that says added to clinicalskills.net. So then that means that so this is going to just take all of that away.
Together. So what happens, I mean, if someone comes in, they come into the area, and as I say, we've got the standard competencies or the local one, and we've just built a local one. So I go into the local area. With a bit of luck, which again is going to take a while to load, so unfortunately. But yeah, this will pull everything together, and it will be, I'll show you if we've got time, but you can actually run reports on the competencies and also the components of the competencies. So you can look at the individual checklists themselves. So here we are. So this is the competency we've just built, ECH, infection control. So if I click on that, this is, remember, as a user coming in to take the competency, they'll say, do you want to begin the competency? They get the introductory screen comes up, which I showed you before. As I say, you can personalize this to say whatever you want. You can take out this information. You could put your own information in there. It tells them all the bits and pieces. And then at the bottom, in the order that we specified, are the various components of the competency they've got to complete. So we do an easy one to start with. Just say, watch this video. And there would be a link there to actually go across and watch a particular video. So they could basically start that. They come in here and they'll get a little bit of information saying, watch this video. We must make sure actually the links do work in this. We haven't tested that yet. So that's something I will come back to. So you might find at the moment, there's just a few little bugs we're working on just to get it working. But they'll say, that they'll watch the video. They'll do whatever the instruction here. When they've done that, they click finish and they just have to tick a box to say, I confirmed that I watched the video. So they confirm and complete. There we go, and that's now marked as being completed. And the same with following a guide or whatever. So they just go through and they read the guides they were told to read. It would show them which guide they actually need to go in and read, and then they would just click finish, certify they've done it, and there we are. So you've got the self-certification area that you can see there. And then they've got the assessment. So when it came to the assessment side, they can start it from here, come across, take assessment, and that'll just launch the assessment as normal. And as I said, that could be a local assessment. It doesn't have to be a standard assessment. So they'd obviously work through and answer that. Now, I won't do that this afternoon because it will take a little bit of time. And it's Monday afternoon. We shouldn't be taking tests on a Monday afternoon, to be honest. And then we come across the checklists, which is quite a big difference because, as we said, they're interactive. Now, how it works with the checklist, as a user wants to start the routine hand hygiene checklist, and you can see here they've got to do it twice. So they got the observation 1 and they got the observation 2, which is how we specified to start with. They come across, click on start in the actions button. What they're then asked to do is they're then asked to actually select an assessor who's going to be doing the checklist with them, and then also the person who's going to finally sign it off. So I've got a couple of names prepared earlier. I'm just going to copy across. So I'll say we've got an initial assessor. So this is obviously someone who's appropriate to actually do the assessment. And then there'll be a sign-off manager who would probably be a super user or a manager within their team or whoever. You can also set an external assessor. That's someone who's not actually on the system as well. And I think you do that do you need the NMC PIN number for that,
No,
Maddie?
so what you do there, so for example, if you send any of your nurses out with other community teams to learn certain skills, so if you know that you have a patient that's coming in with this, but you don't have any of us, so they'll go to say like the wound care team to actually learn how to deal with that specific skill. The you can just input the email from that nurse that they've gone to work with. She'll get an email prompt, or they'll get an email prompt, and they just click on that link, open it up, and they'll get access. They'll only get access to the checklist. So they obviously won't be able to see the rest of the clinical skills content. But it means that, yeah, if you do have to have training facilitated by external nurses or organizations, that then they can get a link in there. But you don't need their NMC pin. It's just good to
Just
show
their email.
that, yeah, just their email.
This
But they need
is
to be registered.
incredible
Yeah.
because we do a lot of that, because it could be me that's delivering the training. It could be an external provider. It could be a specialist nurse. But also, if it was something like hand hygiene, it might be peer-to-peer stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it might be that we say, well, if you've got your hand washing signed off, you can do the peer review for the other person.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Certain competencies like medicines management always has to be done by,
Of course,
you know, but certain competencies can be done peer to peer. So
yeah, I mean,
And
if
you'll
it's
have
awesome.
a track record then of which you'll be able to see clearly with the email which was the assessor that signed it.
Well,
So you
at the
could
moment
be
we
a peer, yeah.
free type it in to my
it's always nice if you can
CPD.
actually search.
Yeah.
So we do all of this, but it's all
Yeah.
manual. So this is
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
amazing.
okay. I'll keep going through then, because so again, this is from
Sorry,
the point of
Steve,
view
yeah.
user who's sorry. Yeah, no, it's good. I sort of want to go through, and it's great that we can sort of look at issues as we go through. So this is a user. He's basically gone in and said, "Yeah, I want to do this assessment, this checklist. This is the person who's going to be assessing me, and this person's going to sign off." They can then click Start Checklist. Now they get to see, oh, what's happened there? Internal approver. I think I typed the wrong name, so let me just put that in properly. Oh, sorry. I think I probably messed it up when I was doing
distracted you,
things.
Steve, sorry.
That's okay. So it's just over that. So there's that. And there's that.
We get
Let's try
excited,
that.
don't we, Maddie?
I know.
Yeah,
Because you
that's
can
the thing.
see it
So
come to like how it can be used in
Yeah.
practice. I have
Oh.
to keep my excitement down professionally.
okay, I'm not sure what's happening there. Am I on the right side? Let me double check. I may have mistyped the email name. Let me just double check there. It worked when I tested it on Thursday, but this is the stuff. It says it's a new system, so we're still getting a few little bugs. So let's just come out of that. That's fine. So what I'll do is I will come back into here. So I'm going to go back in and I'm going to start off again as the actual the user. So there we go. I think that's what I'm in the wrong role. I've got to log out and I've got to go back in as Jim. Sorry about that. I think I was trying to set myself up to sign off the competency that I was already taking. And of course, you can't sign off your own competencies because that would be a bit silly. So let's try again. So we're going to the competencies.
Not an error. Fail safe.
Yeah, no, it's okay. As I say, we're sort of in the early stages of doing this and also demonstrating it. So I'm still a little bit buggy in terms of doing it myself as well. So we go into the local competency again. And let me just close off the other tabs to make sure it's not going to work. And apologies again for the slowness of the speed there. So let's try infection control again. Start that. Okay. Right there. Yes. So I was logged in under the wrong username. You see, it's not actually signed off now. So I'll just do the top one again to show you it does work for Jim. So yeah, finish that. There we go. Complete and finish. Okay, so that's done. Right, so if I jump and I go to the checklist again, let's have another go. So start the checklist, copy across the name of the assessor. There we go. Pop that in there. Copy across the name of the sign-off manager. And this was the person I was actually logged in as. So it didn't like me trying to sign it off myself. And with a bit of luck, yes, there we go. Great. So from the user point of view, they're taken to the checklist, but they can't do anything with it. The next thing that happens is that they obviously contact the person who's doing the assessment. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sign in as the person who's actually been selected to do the assessment. So, or do the checklist. So give me a second here. I'll just come across and sign it as an assessor.
I'll fill your logging space. But so if you're working and the opportunity arises, oh, perfect, we've now got this chance. We're a scenario where we can sign off this venipuncture. You can just literally log in and they can go, okay, now I know that Sandra is going to be my assessor because we're both here and we've got the patient and we've got the opportunity. So then she can log it in. You don't have to like pre-plan who's going to be that assessor because you don't know necessarily who's going to be around when that opportunity does arise. It may be a bit more structured, so you do, but if not, it does mean that you can be opportunistic. And so instantaneously, Sandra will then get this link to going through and
Yeah,
check
what
it.
happens is the assessor will get an email to say there's an assessment waiting for you to actually assess. And when they go onto their dashboard, you have a competency checklist observation area. And this is, as the assessor, you go in there and you can see that you got a new notification came through today saying that Jim is ready for routine hand hygiene initial assessment. And then all they do is they come across, click start, click OK. That then opens the checklist and you've got Jim there. You've obviously, you're all set up, ready to go. And Jim starts doing his thing, and then the assessor actually works through, clicks on screen what's happening, goes through appropriately, can write comments here about, I don't know, a good lather or something like that. They can put whatever the comments they want there as well. And of course, that's all stored in the system and available later. And they just walk all the way down through the checklist. I won't do all of them. Some of them have sort of checklist, have sort of steps which are not always appropriate, and you can actually mark those as not being appropriate. Depending with washing hands, whether they're using soap or alcohol, there may be different steps that are appropriate for different processes. And at the end, you've got the questions like we had before. And this checklist has been copied from our existing one on the system, but obviously made online. And you can actually look at them and say, well, how have they done against those questions? And they got 4 right. How have they done there? Well, they got 5 right there. So you can actually mark off, how they're doing. And then submit for sign off. So this is the assessor saying, yep, I've watched them do the checklists. They've answered the questions. I'm going to submit for sign off. You can add notes. So you can say, very good, no problems, room full of lava now, whatever you want to put. So you can put that in there. You can upload a proof document if you want, and then submit for sign off. And that's now gone from the screen there because the assessor's dealt with it. It's been done. Then what I do is go back. If I go back in as a super user now, as the actual person who was allocated for the sign off. So if I go back in as Alison, get the right account.
While Steve's doing that, there was also the ability there, so you could print the checklist. So if you don't have an iPad to hand, or you don't have a computer that you can actually take to the patient's bedside, you can still print off the checklist, note it down on the paper format, but then come back and input it digitally. So you don't have to remember the steps in your head as you go to the patient. So you've still got that function of being able to do that if needs be.
Yep, that's great. So I'm now back in as the person who was allocated as the sign-off, the final sign-off manager, who can then come in. They go down to their competency checklist observations area, and they can see there they've now got ready for sign-off. So this is the routine hand hygiene checklist that we've just done. The assessor's gone through. It's now ready for sign-off. They can come in here, amend and sign off, and they can actually look at the checklist, and they can come down to the bottom and they can see the comments that the assessor's put. And if they're happy, they can then review and sign that off. Again, they can add their own notes, very good, or whatever. They can pop that in there as well. So it's now gone through the 2 steps of being signed off by the assessor and being signed off by the final manager. Now, this is just the checklist. So it's not the whole competency, it's just the checklist. To complete the competency, the user's got to work through all those elements. They've got to complete the checklists, have them signed off by the assessor and the manager. They've got to do the assessments and pass them, and they've got to do the appropriate self-certification. Now, once a user has done that, they then have if I go, back to Jim again, this is the trouble at the moment, we're jumping around between different accounts and you can only be logged in at one at the time. So what you can do as a user is you can then go into your My Competencies area, go into My Performance, My Competencies, and you can see a list of all the competencies you're currently working on. A bit like you do with the assessment side, you can see that, these are competencies I'm working on. This one I'm halfway through, so I can go in and I can continue it. This one I'm working on as well, I can continue it. And if you passed any competencies, they will appear here and you'll be able to download a certificate as well. So that's from a user point of view. Go on,
Can I ask Steve, so with these competencies then, will we be able to upload all of this prior? So can we do like a bulk upload? Because we've already identified what all our competencies are.
We can set
So
them
we
up
would
in
just need
advance.
to,
Yeah, we can certainly do that.
but we'd like to do a blanket one. So all, because we've got 3 different departments here. We've got an inpatient unit, a hospice at home team, and then a sunflower centre, which is like daycare and outpatients. So each staff member in each of those departments have got different, more or less the same, but different requirements. So a nurse in the hospice at home team might have a slightly different than a nurse on the inpatient unit because of the type of task that they do. So I'd want to make sure that people could look in and then see their full list electronically.
The ones that you've done before, so we'd need to import
Yeah.
them into the system somehow. That would be, we could certainly talk to the technical people how you can do that. It's always a problem when you're transitioning to a new system, how you bring in the old data. Any ideas, Maddie, on a way of doing that? Or I think
Are
maybe
you saying, just sorry, for the different teams? So you would, in terms of like creating the competency, if you wanted to do it slightly different for the people in the sunflower unit, you would just give it a slightly different title, but then it would also just not be allocated to any members within that team. Is that what you're saying? So that they would only see the competencies that are relevant to them. That's similar to like the
Yeah,
assessments. You
so
would just select those team members.
so all of the, say for example, in that book that I've just got here,
Yeah.
so we've got for one of the sisters, we have got 45 clinical skills that that particular one needs to have,
Yeah.
and they are just summarized. So like oxygen, there's lots of different parts of the oxygen that they'd need to meet the requirement, but we just call it oxygen on the checklist here.
yeah,
So the oxygen administration for somebody on the inpatient unit would be slightly different to the hospice at home team because of the type of different
Yeah.
oxygen and the way
yeah,
that it's given. So, but like I said, we couldn't go through every single person and add that in. That
What you would do is you'd have to do it by teams. So kind of you would have to know that that person's part of a different
yeah, so
so you'd create competency oxygen sunflower unit. So that's the one I remember. And then
yeah,
oxygen competency and then your day unit or something like that. And so then you know, okay, that person's in the day unit. I need to allocate them that oxygen competency, not the other one, because that one's
awesome.
criteria is
Yeah, get
yeah,
it.
you
different
can do
Yeah,
that.
and not
I wasn't
relevant to
sure. I
them.
wasn't sure whether you were saying you wanted to import competencies they've already done onto the system, but you're talking about just allocating the specific ones to specific teams and specific people. Is that the
yeah.
thing?
I
Yeah,
mean, the thing is that we will have a massive piece of work to do to get it all up to date because at the moment people are having things signed off in their folder.
yeah,
Mm.
So they've already met the criteria for that particular year.
yeah.
There'll
So
be a
it might be that
transition
yeah,
period.
sometimes they've already effectively done it. So it's a question of whether
Yeah,
you set one up and set it with a a renewal date or set it with a publication date, which is a year hence. So
yeah,
whatever they've done now will carry on.
yeah.
But yeah, if you go into the
Let me write
Teams
that down
page,
as well.
yeah.
Change application date. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. No, I was going to say, if you go into the Teams area on the current website, I don't know if you've seen, you've got buttons at the top where you can look at, the standard guides and assessments that people have got, and you can vary what people can see. So, for example, you can come in and if you've got a particular team and you want them to not have a particular guide, you can turn that off. And you can
I'm
do
not
that
sure if
now.
that's working for us,
Is it? It
because
should be. I mean,
people where we've turned things off and saved them, people are still saying that they can see them.
I know we've had issues in the past, and we've been doing a lot of work over the last month correcting that. And we do have an issue at the moment that if we publish a new guide, it does tend to come through, even if you've turned off the category in the past. But if you're still finding that's the case, let me know because we've done a lot of work to try and get this fine tuned. So if
Yeah,
you've got a specific example, do come to me because literally over the last, 3 weeks or so, we've identified a couple of issues and we've fixed those. So
yeah,
I'm hoping that is still right. But we always say with the system, if you find anything that's not working as it should, or any information in the guides that seems a little out of date or not quite
yeah,
right, do let us know because this is how we find out that we need to fix things and we need to
yeah,
update things. But the idea is the same as you've got that with guides, you've got your standard competency overview button. So you can come in here and you can turn on and off the standard competencies available to different teams. And you can also do it again with the local competencies. And sorry, this is another area that takes a while to load. So certainly with your sunflower house and your, was it inpatients and there was something else, wasn't there? The
hospice
other
at
two.
home, yeah,
That's it. So you could actually say, well, you have very precisely defined competencies for those particular teams, and then
yeah.
you do just turn that on and off. So, this is frustrating. Yeah, I mean, I was saying earlier that we're demonstrating the system, but I want to hold off until they've got this fixed, really, because this is a bit frustrating, really. But there we go. Once it's coming up here, ah, But that does mean, you can very much, I mean, a lot of it is in the initial planning, the same as when you do local assessments. You've got to be very clear from the start, the structure you want, what questions on components you're going to assess, and then actually work through with them and make sure you then set that up in advance. And that's not going to work. So, okay, so that's something that's not working properly. But the idea is that you will be able to go in and allocate the competencies. So apologies for that. That's another little bug area, which I will report. So I thought that was working the other day. But there we go. But that's how it works. The other area to look at is, as a super user, the reporting area, because obviously once people have done the competencies, you want to be able to see what they're doing. So you can come across here into the reports area, and you've now got two new reports. You've got a competency report and you've got a components report. Now the competency report, if you go into it, will very crudely, or not very crudely, but it'll show you the whole competency and what's been achieved. Now we haven't completed one at the moment because we've only just got the self-certification component added, so we've not been able to fully test that. But ultimately you'll be able to come in here, you'll be able to filter by the username or by any other criteria to find a particular team or a particular user. You'll be able to see how they're doing on the competency. You'll be able to view the components of the competency. So you'll be able to see, that they're doing the checklist has got, the competency has got various components in, and you'll be able to see how those are going for Jim. So you can see here Jim's working in all the different parts of the competency. It's taking me out again. And you can also look at the components report, where you can go in and just look at the checklists themselves without the competency overhaul, and see how people are doing on just the checklist element. And both these reports, you can download them as CSVs, so you can open them in Excel. You can store them locally if you want. You can go through date ranges, so once it's up and running, you could have a look at this time last year, or look at the whole of 2026 when it comes to it, and do all those things. And this is just opened. This is the standard competency overview has just opened now. This is where I was saying this is the ability to be able to turn on and off competencies for particular teams. So you can do that from there. And there we go. This is one that we've been testing internally, just a standard one that we've tested internally. So, but obviously that's taking forever to open, so it shouldn't do that. So I think that's, and apologies for the slightly rambling nature of it. But
The training overview, Steve, have we got the similar to the assessments training overview? You've also got that.
We have, is that up at the moment? I wasn't sure
Is that
whether
up?
we'd finally developed
Good
that. Let's
question.
have a look. No, we are working on also having a competency overview, which is going to be similar to this training overview here, which will enable you, now will that work? Will enable you to basically very quickly see color-coded fashion who's completed competencies, who's not started competencies, who's started a competency that is going to expire in a year, and other data as well. And we're planning to build a report very similar to this one, which will give you a little bit of color coding for just to give you an idea of how people are doing, and you'll be able to download that as a report as well. So I think, sorry, I think a lot of information there, but I think it's a pretty comprehensive way of building the competencies, I think. And I think we spent a lot of time, and Maddie's put a lot of work in with Sharon and other people to really, because I don't know if you know, but Maddie is a nurse herself, so has very much got the experience in the practical application of these things. So we've put a lot of time into actually trying to get it to be as useful as possible. So yeah, I think that's really it.
Whistle stop tour of it.
Yeah, sorry, it was a bit rushed, but as I say, this is not the one. Once you start using it, then we're always here for support. So if you've got specific problems, same with the local assessments, you want to build them, come back to us, and we'll work through it. Just the initial planning is the big thing on those, but we're it's we don't sort of charge extra for training. It's just as you need it. Really, we're here. We're also happy to do training for your staff as well. So if you want to train your staff on how to take the competencies, or any of your managers who are going to be actually signing them off, again, we're quite happy to do training on that on screen. That's always available.
Have you got some recordings of training as well? Because that might be useful.
Not as such yet. We're working on, there is a help area on the website, and we are working on more videos on that. And we're working through the assessments at the moment to put videos up for them. And there will be videos related to the competencies, but it is something we could actually, we're sort of thinking of doing, maybe putting something together a bit like just doing a demo. So at least there's something there, in the background to be able to work through.
I think the other thing that we'd like to create in ours that we have, because as nurses, we go off the nursing framework as well, the national framework that they've just come up with. And Hospice UK, from an end of life care point of view, has
Mhm.
just come up with a nursing framework, which is just all being reviewed and stuff.
Right.
So not only have you got your clinical skills, and in your practical tasks, you've also got the training that you have to undertake, but then you've also got what we call our soft skills here. So your core capabilities, and those are around things about the way that you behave, the way you conduct yourself, and so on and so on. So we would want to build those soft skills into here as well.
Yep.
And they're not necessarily competencies, they're called core capabilities, but that would then be up to, I'm just thinking out loud really, that would be up to us then to say, within your competencies on clinicalskills.net, we have built in your core capabilities as well. So
Yeah.
we'd have to
Yeah.
just think about how we then roll that out.
Yeah, that's the
Um,
that's the thing with the competency section. We want you to be able to kind of rely on the system for all of your training, not just the ones where it's associated with clinicalskills.net content. So you will be able to kind of integrate other bits into it,
Yeah.
whether they need to do a checklist on that, just observe their behavior. I don't know quite how you do that, but all the self-certified components that's there, so you can rely on other resources
well, there's
for
like
stuff like that.
there's one here just to sort of give you an example. Assessment and care planning. The nurse will be able to work in a person-centered way, listening to and taking account of the wishes of the person and their carers, recognizing people as experts in their own lives. So again, it might be that somebody has worked with them. It might be that they have done a self-reflection. Um,
You could do a
or
one-step checklist, couldn't you? You could actually create a one-step checklist that when someone has assessed them as competent in doing that, so if someone has
mm,
actually observed them and said, "Yes, I can see that you do this," then they are ticked off, and then it's actually reported on the
and that's
checklist,
it.
isn't it?
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
just a one-stop checklist rather than being a self-certify. You've still got someone
You need a
saying
yes
that
and a
they've seen
no.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
could do.
And that's really important because it helps with our processes here.
Mhm.
yeah,
So if you think about like people that aren't performing
yeah,
and people that are maybe not communicating so well, it gives you grounds then to manage people
yeah, yeah,
with the evidence attached to it. So it
Is
makes it
this
a
yeah.
whole lot easier.
is
And
this
you
where
can
you?
set up those steps for
Yeah.
support as well. So if you recognize someone actually needs a little bit more further input, you could create a
Mm,
competency that's tailored to that structure of a bit
mm,
more support,
mm.
saying, okay, let's make sure we got this and we do that. We have this meeting that's signed off. Because you've got your assessor's notes there as well. So the assessor's
Yeah,
notes can actually be the
Mm.
discussion that you had
yeah, yeah,
following it as
Mm.
well.
yeah.
Is
So
this the framework you were sort of talking about, or related to that?
no,
Or?
you're on the website. That's Hospice UK's website, but that's to
Yeah.
do with wellbeing and resilience. I don't know if they've published
Mm.
the framework publicly just yet.
All
I've
right.
had to sign into another
Oh, I see.
account to
Right.
get access to it, so it's not actually in the public
No, no.
domain
It'd
at
be
the
nice to be
minute.
able to see if it's available somewhere, and you
Well, I
come
can
across a
send it
link
to
with.
you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd
So
be
it'd be good
great.
to
Yeah.
sort of, we like to keep up on what's the various frameworks and things, and make sure we're meeting
Yeah.
standards and stuff. So,
Yeah. Well, like, again,
mm,
I suppose it depends on what might be hard to add it into a national system like yours because these are the palliative and end of life care
mm,
nursing framework, whereas you've got your nursing framework, and then you've also got a framework for pharmacists, you've got a framework for
mm,
physiotherapists, um, advanced nurse practitioners. But that's the project we've been working on for the past 2 years is to create them.
I mean,
And
we do have a palliative
that's what
care
we've done
category
on,
now. So we've got a palliative
yeah.
care category now, which we're looking to
Mm,
build. So that would be something that'd be nice to feed into that. So,
yeah.
So hopefully
but
Natalie's gonna help
Be an
contribute.
author. Yeah.
Yeah, doing all
yes, yeah, we do
that.
pay. So we do. We're always looking for good. It's not just authors, also peer reviewers as well. So I don't know if
Well,
Trevor's
I'm
mentioned that.
just doing a peer review at the moment,
Oh yeah,
so
brilliant, brilliant.
yeah,
Oh, good. They're good. They're not hassling you and saying where is it and things like that, are they? So, but I'm sure you're fine.
I think
Oh,
Natalie's
I think she's
frozen.
frozen. Oh dear.
Should we stop recording?
Yep. Stop recording, and I think she's frozen. So there we go.
Oh, yeah, you're back.
it went.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
back.
there you go. We're
You're back.
back. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah, you said